It's funny though to think her one-night stand would lead to her joy. Her very existence, her son, being duped by her groom at the altar, is all it takes for Michaela Sandoval to sacrifice her virginity to a complete stranger who swoops in at the right time, leading to a son that binds them. Welcome to our channel. If you like interesting and touching love stories, come to our channel. Here, Emma will bring you stories full of surprises, emotions, and excitement. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any interesting stories. Let's enjoy it together. Mick, the guests are getting impatient. They want to leave and so should we. Her mom whispered, standing next to her. She slightly nudged her arm, trying to convince her to come to terms with reality. 5 more minutes, Mom. He'll be here. She said, her eyes glued to the elevator doors in hope that at any time they would part and her soon-to-be husband would barge right in. 10 minutes and now half an hour had passed, yet no sign of him. She looked around, her hand tightly clutching the bunch of flowers. The judge murmured impatiently underneath his breath and the guests whispered among themselves. It took some time before she realized that she had been left hanging at the altar. Her heart beat rapidly, arousing emotions that shattered her heart. Emotions that made her eyes burn with tears and her legs felt weak. She felt like collapsing. She looked down at her floor-length white dress, simple but yet cost a fortune. She remembered how happy she was, trying on all those bridal gowns, even if the wedding would be an intimate one. Today she had worn a thong underneath that simple dress, ready to have the best honeymoon ever, ready to appease her husband, or so she thought. Realization hit her, and she couldn't take all the gossip spreading across the room like bushfire, the glares that everybody gave her, some pitiful, others spiteful. She stormed out of there, clutching the hem of her dress. She pushed the elevator button hard, and in a rush the elevator doors parted. She rushed in, her eyes downcast, avoiding the humiliation she had to go through. Once the elevator doors closed, she slid lazily to the floor. The tears that she had for so long held them back, flowed freely down her cheeks. Her heavy mascara flowed down together with her tears, staining her gown. She sobbed furiously, slamming the flowers on the damn elevator. As she did this, someone suddenly cleared his throat. She looked down at the glistening black shoes to the now towering figure above her. It was a man clad in a well-tailored clay suit. She jolted from the floor, wiping off her tears and trying to seem completely okay. She didn't know how long the man stood there watching her. The man suddenly faced her before speaking. "Wanna get out here? I know a mean place to relieve stress." Minutes later, ******. The funny thing is, I was the one who paid for everything, starting from this dress to the catering, she said, laughing hysterically as she gulped another shot of tequila. The man stared at her, mesmerized by her laughter and enjoying the shots of tequila that kept on coming. After a couple of drinks, he decided to take her home, but Michaela had nothing on her, no money, no credit card, nor any sort of identification card. He carried her to his car, ready to take her to the nearest hotel. In the car, she kept on singing to every tune on the radio, trying to keep herself from going insane. Once in the hotel, she giggled, although her sight was getting blurry and her legs felt wobbly. Luckily, the stranger was quick to catch her before she fell to the ground. She observed his features. He had very good physique, his prominent jaw making him handsome, his strong arms that were quick to catch her still lingering at her waist, and the lush brown hair that filled his head. She looked at his lips, so beautiful, so captivating, begging to be touched. She reached for his lips, clamping her lips with his. He was quick to return the kiss, exploring all the corners of her mouth with his tongue. He savored her hungrily like a starving man, ravishing her like the last meal he would have. She, in return, unbuttoned his coat, throwing it aside. He stopped kissing her, looking at her immensely with his beautiful gray eyes, undressing her with his eyes. He clutched her neck with his hand, caressing it with kisses. She moaned by his touch. He then reached for the zipper behind her dress, slowly unzipping it. Her dress fell to the ground, leaving her with a black cotton lace bra and a thong. He was smitten with her body. He got rid of her bra, now cupping her breasts with his tender hands, slowly kissing her from her neck to the swollen nipples that stood erect from his touch, while she ran her slim fingers in his hair, ruffling it a bit. He sucked one of her nipples, making her moans now louder and demanding. That turned him on. Seeing the effect she had for him excited him. He stopped now to remove his shirt, pants, and boxers. He rubbed circles on her stomach as her fingers bore into his back. She, on the other hand, wanted more. His touch, his kisses and caresses helped her forget about everything that had transpired today. Even as the stranger now got rid of her thong, she was ready for him, ready to forget everything, ready to sacrifice her virginity to a complete stranger. She had nothing to lose anyway. He settled himself between her thighs. Tracing his fingers on her inner thighs, she looked at him as an affirmation of acceptance. With that, he entered her, despite the surge of pain she felt. He still went on now, trying to be gentle and at the same time rough. They moved together in perfect sync, her body feeling his body on hers. She was simply in a seventh heaven. She awoke to the soft, tender skin underneath her. A man had wrapped his hands around her waist. She scanned the surroundings, her migraine getting worse by the second. Her dress at the furthest corner of the hotel room. Her thong hung on the larvae lamp on the nightstand. Entangling the man's arms from her waist, she covered her naked body with the white bedsheet that had little stains of blood. She blamed herself for everything that happened. Her heart was racing and her mind in turmoil. To think she had preserved her virginity for too long as a gift to her husband. Now a stranger had already made his way with her. After putting on her dress, she reached for the door before stumbling with the man's pants across the floor. His wallet hanging slightly from the trousers pocket. She couldn't, but then again she had no choice. Quickly taking the man's wallet in her hand, she removed $500 and rushed out. Minutes later, she was seated in a cab. The driver constantly taking glances at her, doubting if she had the money to pay him. She sat there, wondering where to go. Her parents would make her feel worse since they never consented to the marriage. They would only rub salt on her wounds. Her brother Gus would understand how she felt, but she didn't want to add up to his problems. An idea popped up. She would go to the one person she trusted the most. Her best friend, Raquel Henderson. 2 weeks later ********. Mick, we both know what's going on. So take this, it will finally confirm what we know. Raquel handed her best friend the little box. This was the 4th time she was kneeling on the bathroom floor, her head near the toilet bowl as she puked. This had continued for almost 1 week already, the morning sickness, the nausea and the puking. Michaela also had a feeling that what her best friend, Raquel, insinuated could be true, so she went to the bathroom taking the pregnancy kit with her. "Rack, it's 2 lines," she exclaimed, showing her best friend the stick that had 2 red parallel lines on it. "Yay! We are having a house baby," Raquel said excitedly, but what she didn't know was that her best friend was now a bundle of nerves. Who would support her? Her parents would disown her. Her life was ruined and had now taken a wrong turn, a dead end. And the father to her unborn baby? That night she was too drunk to remember his face or his name. All she remembered were those tantalizing lips, those gray eyes that bore into hers in a moment of passion. "Now that son of a gun will have to marry you for sure," Raquel told Michaela, unaware that the father to her baby was only a one-night stand. "I forgot to mention one tinsy detail. You will totally laugh after I tell you this." Mick, what did you do?" Raquel asked. "When Owen left me at the altar, I was devastated, confused. This handsome man shows up. He was so hot, Rack. I thought it was Owen in that bed, I swear," she tried explaining, justifying herself. "We must tell Gus about this," Raquel said, but Michaela didn't want to. She didn't want to put her family to shame. The Sandovals were reputable people that the society looked up to and honored. The paparazzi must have already gotten information that she had been duped at the altar. Now a scandal like her getting pregnant from a one-night stand would totally crush her family's honor to shambles. No one should know about this, not Gus nor my family," she declared. Her best friend hugged her, stroking her nut-brown hair, assuring her that she would support her in her decision. "I'm here for you, Mick. We will raise this baby together." Those words touched Mick. She cried her heart out. All this happened because of Owen Williams, the man she thought loved her. The man who always whispered sweet nothings in her ear. The man who used some Googled punchlines just to woo her. He was a good-for-nothing man, always using her for the money she had. Lying to her that they would spend the rest of their lives together and build their future together. The thought of telling the father of her unborn child crossed her mind, but she couldn't remember his face. Then again, if the man really cared, he would have looked for her, but he didn't, and that was enough reason not to look for him. 7 years later, she wiped the cookie dough off her face, as she continued adding more flour. She had made a mess, but it was worth all the trouble since those were his favorite chocolate cookies. Mommy, can I have some? The little boy nudged her mother's apron. She looked down at her little boy, a smile forming at the corner of her lips. He always did this, begging to lick the chocolate off the spoon as her mom baked his favorite chocolate chip cookies. Seth was her joy, her very existence. He was the only thing that turned right in her life. She recalled the day she gave birth to Seth. Raquel totally flipped when Seth's little hand clutched her finger, and the little giggle he let out when Raquel held him. Immediately after finding about her pregnancy, she left for Los Angeles. She was ready to give Seth up for adoption despite Raquel's persuasion. Once she saw his little gray eyes, she fell in love with her son and pledged to fight nook and cranny to give her son a better life. Her parents and brother Gustavo knew nothing of her whereabouts. They knew nothing about Seth, and she insisted to keep it that way. Suddenly the doorbell rang, making her jolt to the present. "Mommy, I'll get it," Seth said excitedly, rushing for the door. "Seth, be careful, I don't want you getting hurt," her mother shouted at him from the kitchen. "Baby boy, I have missed you so much. You seem to be growing every time I see you," Raquel said, hugging Seth and pinching his cheeks playfully. "Aunt Rack, I told you not to call me that. The other kids will make fun of me." "Tell her, Mommy." Seth pouted his lips, making both Michaela and Raquel laugh. "Ooh, so you are not my baby boy? Okay then, well I guess I'll just have to take my gift back home," Raquel said, now hiding the little blue shopping bag behind her back. "No, Aunt Rack, I'm your baby boy. Please give me my gift, please," Seth pleaded. His little hands clasped together as he exposed the huge gap between his incisors. "Ah, baby boy. I hope you like it," she said, now handing the shopping bag to him. Seth quickly rummaged the contents of the bag before removing a box with the latest Spider-Man action figure. He jumped up and down excitedly. Seth. What do we say to Aunt Rack?" "Thank you, Aunt Rack," he said, now running to his room to play with his latest toy. Raquel joined her friend in baking the cookies, and in no time they were done. They talked about work since they happened to work at the same hotel. Luckily, Raquel had put in a good word for Michaela, and she was hired and finally promoted to being the hotel's manager. "I have been calling you since last night. What happened, Mick?" Raquel asked, seating next to Michaela on the couch. "You won't believe what happened, Rack. You know, Seth made sure to take away my phone to avoid any disruptions. I had to pose for an hour as he made his art," Michaela chuckled. "That's my baby boy." Raquel joined in, also amused by his precious nephew. "Enough of Seth. How's everything? Did Phil call someone to fix the darn elevator?" "I already checked up on that. But the Russians have been complaining about the air cons. They are not enough, they said. The Russians have been giving them a hard time despite their futile efforts of trying to accommodate their tastes. And before I forget, we have to make the necessary arrangements for his accommodation in the hotel. I don't understand why this guy is so important, Rack," Michaela snapped, sipping in the mango juice while she relaxed on the couch. "Mick, we talked about this. He's a prominent businessman, and if he doesn't like our hotel, with just a snap of his finger we'll be done. Smile a lot. Smile a lot," Michaela assured herself, waiting for the convoy of vehicles to park and its occupants to move outside. She had put on a black stripped blouse and a knee-length skirt while the other hotel employees stood beside her waiting to welcome their most important guest yet. Raquel, on the other hand, handled calls requesting the hotel service to prepare the guest's room and making sure everything was in order. As soon as the cars stopped, 2 well-built men came rushing out, opening the door for the so-called businessman. Immediately a man stormed out, his leather jacket gleaming against the rays of light that the sun threw. His white shirt beneath the jacket dazzled against the light and completely matched with his blue jeans. And now to his eyes, which were hidden by the golden black shades he had on. Reaching for his shades, he removed them, slowly revealing the gray eyes which interlocked with Mick's. Michaela's expression changed. She tried faking on a smile. She swallowed saliva in a bid to clear her throat, which was now getting raspy and dry. Then, looking at Raquel, she mouthed, "The dude." Raquel's face grew blank and she mouthed back, "Really? He's the dude?" Raquel asked once they were in Michaela's office. Michaela was scared something about the way he looked at her minutes ago made her tense. Yes, Rack. It's him. Those gray eyes. I remember them, she said using her hands to fan herself. Well, pee in my ear and call it hot rain. You had to sleep with the one and only Roman Cervantes? Make you are his baby mama. Seth. The mere mention of Seth suddenly made her legs weak. What if he found out they had a son together? What if he took Seth away from her? No, she wouldn't let anyone take her son away from her. No, Rack. Seth is mine. Mine. He probably won't remember me anyway, she said, laughing nervously as if to calm herself from how hot her body was getting and how fast her heart beat. Me? Mick, look at him. Seth is like a mini version of him. They look alike, Raquel said. Would you stop it, Rack? I'm so terrified and you ain't helping, she said, now slowly massaging her head to ward off the headache that tried setting in. Honey, I'm sorry, but this is just mind-boggling. I mean, the Roman Cervantes. He's the head honcho, stinking rich, probably owns all the business corporations in LA, Raquel said, she too fanning herself with the magazine. They both stayed silent for minutes. Michaela mind shifting to Seth, who in a matter of minutes would be there coming off from school. Raquel, on the other hand, saw this as a good opportunity for her best friend and Seth to finally get the happily ever after they deserved. Suddenly Karina, her personal secretary, barged in, paving way for the person who wanted to see her. Well, this is my cue to leave. Let's go, Karina. Raquel closed the door, leaving him inside with Michaela. She looked up at him as he strode over to one of her chairs, making himself comfortable. Sir, I hope all is well, she stuttered, her legs now trembling against the huge desk. Something about how the man assessed her made scared. You know, everything was going well before I saw your face, he spat. That unexpectedly hurt her a bit. She could see where this was going, but she needed this job. The man seated in front of her was trying to provoke her. She kept her cool. She breathed in and out before she spoke. Well, that is avoidable, Mr. Cervantes. We don't have to see each other now, do we? So enjoy the rest of your stay in our hotel. If you need anything, room service is there for you. Now, if there isn't anything else you want to say, you can leave, she said, keeping up a smile. She didn't miss the hint of anger written all over his face. The way his brows tightened, the way his body tried to make itself comfortable in the seat, the way his gray eyes now held more resentment, and the way he clenched his jaw so much that his veins became visible on his skin. It amuses me how you pretend not to know me. But then again, I don't expect much from your kind. What do you mean, my kind? She asked carefully, trying not to evoke any brawl that would result to her getting fired. Innocent, are we? Well, the kind that sells her body around only for what? $500. He smirked, realizing that he had just hit a nerve. Michaela was utterly shocked. She was no slut. Her parents had raised her right. She had her own values, her dignity and her morals. The only reason she took those $500 was out of desperation. She would gladly pay him back with interest if that's what he wanted. Is that what this is all about? She reached in for her purse, removing a bundle of notes and carefully sliding it to his side of the desk. I don't need your slutty money, Miss Sandoval, he said, now throwing the bundle of notes down in disgust. I have had just enough of you. You want to bring up what happened 7 years ago, then let's bring it up. Aren't you the one who took advantage of me that night? She asked. Sure, play innocent now. That night you were all over me, giggling hysterically as if you liked me. Bitch, you are a dirty whore, he exclaimed, now standing and making his point across. Michaela also stood up, her seething anger threatening to explode from within her. They exchanged glances as if ready to have an epic showdown before the door slightly opened. Seth came in clutching his small backpack, dressed in his school uniform, and ran to his mother. Mommy, I have something for you. Seth set his back, now facing Roman, who at the same time seemed shocked by his presence. Michaela looked down at Seth, then at Roman, and she realized these two were truly alike. She now reached down, taking Seth in his arms. You have something for Mommy? Okay, honey, I'll see it later. Go play with Uncle Phil while I talk to our guest, she said, still trying to hide Seth's face in her arms. Okay. Bye, Mommy's guest, he said, now looking at Roman before jumping from her mother's arms. Roman for a moment looked at Seth, and something flickered in his heart.